Hello students, welcome to Scholars Kolkata. Today we are going to learn about the topic sense organs, and in this topic we will learn about the human eye. So let's start. We are going to discuss is falling under the chapter sense organs, and this chapter is present in the syllabus of class 10 and as well as 12 of all the boards, and is also a very important chapter for NEET, right? So see, so the topic that we are going to discuss is sense organ, and the subtopic under sense organ which we are going to discuss in this part of the video is the human eye. Now starting from the very basic, we all know that eye is a paired structure and is the sense organ for vision, right? And over here the eye is a paired structure, and in the skull the eye is located into two sockets. The two sockets in which the eye is located in the skull is known as orbits. Now see, if we see the structural and the functional of the main eye structure, there are few peculiarities. Now if we consider the wall of the eye, the wall of the eye is divided into three regions. The regions are fibrous tunica, vascular tunica, and another one is retina. So the wall of the eye is divided into three regions: fibrous tunica, vascular tunica, and retina. The fibrous tunica is the outer part, the vascular tunica is the middle part, and the retina is the innermost part. Now if we see that the fibrous tunica, which is the outer part of the eye, this part is again subdivided into two segments. One is the anterior segment and another one is the posterior segment. So let's see, in the anterior segments, the part that is present is the cornea. Over here, this cornea is the part of the fibrous tunica which is also present on the outer part of the eye. This cornea is present on the outer part of the eye, right? And in the posterior part, the part of the fibrous tunica that is present is also known as sclera. The part of the fibrous tunica that is present in the interior or the posterior part of the eye is known as sclera. So the fibrous tunica is divided into anterior cornea and the posterior sclera. Now if we see the functions of this cornea and sclera, it is very easy. If you understand this diagram, it is very easy for you to know the functions rather than to just mug it up, right? Because biology has been taught with a conception, or rather we can say a misconception, that this subject requires a lot of mugging up and very little to understand. So let's see how we can prove this misconception wrong. So over here, see, now this cornea, as it is located in the anterior part of the eye, so this structure is the cornea, right? So if this is the light source, the light falls or enters the eye through the cornea. So the light falls into the eye through the cornea, right? And in the posterior region, this sclera, what does this sclera do? This sclera gives shape to the eye. The eye with this sclera maintains the shape of the eye, and as this sclera is located on the posterior part, no light rays can enter the sclera. And why it is so? Because over here we see the sclera is located inside the eye. If this is our eye, the outer part that we can see, that part contains the cornea, and inside the eye the sclera is present, and the light cannot penetrate through your screen, right? So the light gets reflected from the skin, and the sclera is located inside the eye, right? Now if we see the structure of cornea and sclera, we will see that, see over here, the cornea, which is this part, is a curved structure. This is a curved structure, and the sclera, this sclera is made up of collagen fibers and fibroblast cells. So the sclera, this sclera is made up of collagen fibers and fibroblast cells, right? Now if we see this cornea is again divided into three segments. One is the outer segment, another one is middle, and the last one is the inner segment. Now this segment is divided on the basis of the cells, or rather the tissues that it possesses. So in the outer segment, the cells over there are mostly keratinized. And in the middle layer it contains the stratified squamous epithelium. The middle layer contains the squamous stratified epithelium, and the inner layer mainly consists of simple squamous epithelium. Right now, so this over here we have completed the first or the outermost wall of the eye. Now if we come to the inner middle part of the eye, the middle part of the eye is known as vascular tunica. Right, so this vascular tunica also is divided into three parts. The three parts are choroid. Part number one is choroid, the second part is the iris, and the last part is the ciliary muscle. So ciliary muscles, choroid and iris, these three structures make up the vascular tunica. Now these three structures are together also known as uvea. Uvea. These three structures are also together known as uvea. If we see the choroid, it's a dark pigmented structure. The pigmented part, it occurs due to the high presence of melanin. So what is the function of choroid? Now if we see the function of choroid over here, if we look at the structure, the choroid is this structure, right? So this structure over here, the function of this structure is that the light rays, after they have entered or passed through the lens, they cannot reflect from the choroid. It prevents the reflection of the light from within the eye. It prevents the reflection of the light within the eye, right, from within the eye. Now if we see this choroid also has a very particular function. It supplies the eye with nutrients and oxygen. It supplies the eye with nutrients and oxygen. Now coming to the second part, of this vascular tunica, or which we can say uvea, is the iris. So the second part of the vascular tunica is the iris. Now if we see this iris also have some particular functions and structures. Now coming to the iris, we can see that the iris is a pigmented structure, and the opening of the iris, that is over the, this is the iris, this is the iris, and the opening, this part is known as the pupil. The opening of the iris through which the light enters, it is known as pupil. Over here we see in some persons that their eye is blue in color, right? So that bluish color in the eye, that color happens when the iris is not pigmented. When the iris is non-pigmented, the eye appears blue in color. So coming to the last part of the uvea, which is the ciliary muscle. This muscle over here, this muscle is the ciliary muscle. So what is ciliary muscle? Ciliary muscle, so over here, is nothing but the muscle that holds the lens in place. Okay, so if this is the lens, there are two muscles over here. They hold the lens in place, and they also regulate the length or shape of the lens, right? So coming to lens, so let us understand lens. So we all know that lens is a transparent structure. So why is the lens a transparent structure? The lens, it is because that the cells that form the lens, they normally lack their cell organelles, and they also lack the nucleus. So this lacking of the organelles and the nucleus, they make lens a transparent structure. And as the lens lacks the DNA and also the protein synthesizing mechanism, therefore if the lens gets damaged, there is no way that the lens can again repair itself, right? So over here we have learned about the middle layer, that is the vascular tunica, which consists of choroid, ciliary muscle and iris. Okay, I am telling you one point. In the ciliary muscle, if we see, the ciliary muscles also have a structure within them that is known as capillaries. Right, now these capillary or the capillary bodies, we can say, these capillary bodies helps in the production of aqueous humor. Now what is aqueous humor we will see, but let us first complete the structure of the eye. Now the ciliary muscle also, along with the another structure which is known as suspensory ligament, this suspensory ligament, along with the suspensory ligament, they control the shape of the lens, right? So now we will see how the ciliary muscles regulate the length or the structure of the lens. So suppose this is a lens, right, and these two muscles are the ciliary muscles. Now when these two, the ciliary muscles, when they relax, what happens? When it relax, it comes down, these muscles goes upward, and due to this mechanism the lens get elongated, right? The lens gets stretched. Now when these two, the ciliary muscles contract, they compress, and which results over there the lens gets spherical, the lens get a spherical structure. So over here we have completed the vascular tunica, right? So coming to the innermost part of the eye, that is the retina. So the retina is primarily divided into three layers. There is a bipolar layer, a layer which is made up of bipolar cells. There's another layer which we can say is the innermost layer. That layer is made up of ganglionic cells, and that layer contains the optic disc. So what is optic disc we will see. And in the retina another very important layer is present. That layer is known as photoreceptor layer, or this layer is made up of cells which are photoreceptor in nature. So what is photoreceptor? See, photo comes from the word photon. Photon means light, and receptor means the cells which get activated when light falls into them. So the photoreceptor cells is one of the most, or we can say the most important cell layer that is present in retina. Now these photoreceptor cells, they are composed of two type of cells. One are the rods, and the another one is the cones. So rods and cones are the two photoreceptor cells, and they play a very important role in the processing of the image. Now what happens in these rods? They are the cells which get activated when there is less amount of light, right? Or rather we can say in darkness. And the cones, they get activated when there is high amount of light, so in the daytime. So we can say that rods, they are achromatic cells. What does the word achromatic means? Achromatic means the cells which does not take color, or the cells which does not have the ability to perceive the color. Now coming to cones, they are the cells that normally helps us to perceive blue, red, green, this type of light. So the rod cells, they have a specific substance in them. That substance is known as rhodopsin. And in cones, the substance that is present, that substance is known as photopsin. So in rods, rhodopsin is present, and in cones, photopsin is present, right? So the rhodopsins and photopsins are the two chemicals which undergo few changes so that we can perceive the light rays coming from an image. So these rods and cones are the most important part of retina. Now over here if we see, so if this is the lens, the opposite part of the lens, this opposite part of the lens is known as fundus. Now in fundus, so if you want to see the fundus, you can see it with the help of a ophthalmoscope, right? So if we see the eye from the lens, if we cut a line from the lens to the lens, we can see the eye can be divided into two chambers. This chamber is known as the anterior chamber, and the chamber over this layer, this chamber is known as the posterior chamber. So this anterior chamber, so if you see the chambers of the eye, the chambers are divided into two parts. One is the anterior chamber, and the another one is the posterior chamber. Now this anterior chamber is again divided into two parts. One is the anterior segment, and the another one is the posterior segment. So this anterior segment is the part from the cornea till the iris. This part from the cornea till the iris is the anterior segment, and from the iris to the lens, this part from the iris to the lens, this part is known as the posterior segment. Now in the anterior chamber of the eye, there is a fluid present. The name of the fluid is aqueous humor. The aqueous humor is the fluid that is present in the anterior chamber, and in the posterior chamber the fluid that is present is the vitreous humor. Now the aqueous humor is produced by the capillary network. This capillary network is present within the ciliary muscles. Now the function of the aqueous humor is that it nourishes the lens, because the lens cannot nourish itself, because we have learned that the lens lacks the cells or organelles, right? So the lens is nourished by the aqueous humor, and on the posterior segment over here the vitreous humor is present. Now this vitreous humor helps to maintain the shape of the eyeball, and it nourishes the lens, along with it gives the protection to the retina, right? It gives the protection to the retina and it nourishes the lens. So this is the chambers of the eye. So the two chambers of the eye are this. Now if we see, there are two terms associated with the eye. One is the accommodation and another one is the adaptation. So if we see, the two terms that are associated with the eye are accommodation and another one is the adaptation. So what are these two terms? So let us discuss the accommodation. Suppose this is your eye, right? If this is your eye, and over here there is an object, over here there is an object, and this object is moving, right? It can move in the forward direction, it can move in the backward direction. So if this object is changing its shape, so the light rays that are coming from the object is also getting changed, right? The light rays coming from here is different than the light rays coming from here. So the lens of the eye, has to constantly adapt itself, or has to constantly accommodate itself, so that it can see a proper constant vision. So this accommodation of the lens to accommodate the different types of light rays that are coming from the object which is moving, this is known as accommodation. And the second part that is over here, that is the adaptation. So what is adaptation? Suppose you have entered a very dark room from a well lit room, right? So whenever you enter the dark room, you see that for few fractions of a second you cannot see. So what is that difference in time? That difference is time is due to the adaptation of the eye. The eye has to adapt itself due to the sudden change in the intensity of the light. So this sudden change of intensity, is known as the adaptation, right? So the adaptation over here, so the adaptation is again of two types. The two types are light adaptation and the other one is dark adaptation. So light adaptation and dark adaptation, these are the two types of adaptation. So what is light adaptation? So when from a dark room we come to a well lit room, that is known as light adaptation, that the eye has to adapt to light. And when we go from a well lit room to a dark room, that adaptation is known as dark adaptation. So now we will learn about the diseases of the eye. So the two most common diseases of the eye are myopia and hypermetropia. So let's see what happens over here. So just let me rub this portion. So if we see, suppose this is the normal eye, right? So if this is the object, normally what happens, the light rays come from here, this is the lens, they converge over here. This is the rays of light coming from the lens. So this is the normal diagram of a normally functioning eye. So in myopia, what happens over here is that the object is present, right? So the shape of the eyeball, what happens, they get elongated. So what happens over here, the lens which was positioned actually over here, they get back, right? So the lens was normally over here, should normally be over here, but it is now back. So the light rays, they come from here and they convert in front of the retina. The light rays coming from here, they convert in front of the retina. So what happens? So this condition is known as myopia. This condition is known as myopia. So in myopia, we can see that the image is forming in front of the retina. So what does the problem which arises? The problem that arises from the myopia is that we normally can see the near objects, but the objects which are very far away from us, we are unable to perceive them, right? So how can this be corrected? This can be corrected by the use of concave lens. They can be corrected by the use of concave lens, right? So coming to the next defect of the eye, the next defect of the eye is known as hypermetropy. Over here what happens, the eyeball gets very shortened. The eyeball gets very shortened. So the lens which was normally to be over here, this lens comes in the front. This lens comes in the front, and the object which was over here, the light rays coming from the objects merges behind the retina. The light rays coming from the object, they merges behind the retina. So what happens over here is that the person who is having this hypermetropia, this person who is having the hypermetropia, what happens is that they can normally see the distant vision very well, there is no problem, but the near vision becomes very distorted. The near vision becomes very distorted, and this can be corrected by the use of convex lens. Convex lens. The convex lens can cure the hypermetropia. Okay. Now the third problem with the eye is that there is a condition with the name of astigmatism. So what happens over here is that the cornea, which is normally a curved structure, which we have seen, the curvature of the cornea is lost. Due to the loss of curvature in cornea, we cannot perceive the image, right? So this problem can be rectified with the help of using cylindrical or contact lenses. These two type of lens, they can rectify astigmatism. And coming to the last popular defect of the eye which occurs with the old age is the cataract. Cataract occurs when the lens, due to old age, loses its transparency. The loosening of the transparency of the lens due to the old age is known as cataract. And why the lens loses its transparency, we have already seen, right? So these four are the most common defects of the eye. So today we have completed the basic overview of the eye. If you have liked this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions regarding this video, you can always comment on the comment section. And for the second part of the video, which will be on the year, you can always subscribe to our channel and also kindly press the bell icon so that you will be notified for all the upcoming videos. Thank you.